If you've got thin, fine hair, every product choice matters. But I've been doing hair professionally for 30 years, and I've noticed that about 90% of people choose the wrong products and they actually make their hair look thinner. So these are the exact products that I recommend, and more importantly, why they work so well. Okay, so in this video, I'm gonna walk through all of the different, let's call them categories. It's kind of from shampoos all the way through to styling products, as well as finishing sprays and the tools in between there that I would personally recommend. And so in each different category, I'll explain kind of what you should be looking for, and then I'll share the products that I personally would recommend inside of those categories. Now heads up, this is not sponsored by anybody, and I will make sure that I link all of the products in the description as well as the pinned comment so that you can easily find the exact ones that I'm talking about. Okay, so let's start off with shampoos and conditioners. Usually I get asked, what do you think about volumizing shampoos and conditioners? I typically find that products that try to do too many things kind of do none of those things very well. So for me, it's more important to try to find shampoos that clean your hair, conditioners that condition your hair, and then volumizing products that do what they're supposed to do, which is create volume. The shampoo and conditioner that I have been using on my thin, fine hair for probably the last 3 or 4 years, and I really actually like a lot, is from a company called Hairstore, and it's New Wash. It is a 2-in-1, meaning that it's both a conditioner and a shampoo mixed into one. Now, just so you know, that means that it's not gonna set up a lot. That doesn't change anything about the functionality of how it cleans your hair. It simply means that it doesn't set up. There's no sulfates in it to get a lot of suds. It might slightly impact the amount that you use, because if something suds up a lot, it's gonna emulsify through the hair maybe a little bit easier. But for the most part, you're using a 2-in-1 that actually functions really well as a conditioner and as a shampoo, and you shouldn't have to use that much more to still get it through your hair. One little trick is when you get in the shower and you put some in your hand, you can actually put a little bit of water on it, kind of rub it together, and then start working it through your hair, and that'll help to make it a little bit better at emulsifying or make it distribute a little bit easier. Okay, now once you get out of the shower, you're going to need to comb some of those tangles out. You towel out your hair, then we detangle it. So the brush that I really like, it's called a wet brush. You've probably seen or heard about these before, but I really like them because their bristles are not super stiff, so they're very easy on your hair. One of the biggest things you want to be concerned of with thin, fine hair is that while you're combing these tangles out, which especially if you actually have a lot of fine hair and you think it's thin, but it's actually quite dense, you'll probably find that your hair tangles a lot. And so you wanna make sure that the brush you're using to tangle doesn't rip those tangles out and actually cause more damage to your hair. Okay, now that you've got the tangles out, with thin, fine hair, unfortunately, you don't get the luxury of not making sure that you're taking every step that you can to minimize any sort of damage. So we wanna make sure that we use some sort of heat protectant before you use a blow dryer or any other heat tools or hot tools that you're gonna use. Sidestepping this very quickly, a lot of people will say, well, I allow my hair to air dry, and therefore it's just not damaging. There's some mixed knowledge there, and we want to be a little bit careful. Just remember, but while your hair is wet, it's actually in its most fragile state. And there was actually a study that showed that people that actually allowed their hair to air dry, it actually was not less damaging than blow drying it. Of course, there's some process to how you blow dried it, but point being is it isn't always as easy on your hair as you might believe it to be. So let's just assume that you're going to be using a blow dryer or some hot tools and you're gonna dry it. So this is my favorite right now. This is the Pureology Color Fanatic. I'm a big fan because not only is it a heat protectant, but it also actually helps to smooth hair out and actually recondition hair. So it's kind of like a light leave-in conditioner. But the biggest thing for me is that, especially if you've got thin, fine hair, you can't afford to have something that's weighing your hair down a lot. And this hasn't really shown to weigh hair down. I feel like you get the same amount of volume whether I use this or not. So to me, like, this is kind of a simple go-to for heat protectant. Spray a fair amount of it all through your hair, comb it through, and you're ready to go. Now, the next step that we're gonna do is add a volumizer. This is where a lot of people feel like they don't wanna use this type of product because it's gonna weigh their hair down, or they're gonna feel like there's too much product in their hair, or a host of different concerns. But hear me clearly with this. I don't care if you buy products or don't buy products. If you do not use a volumizing foundational product to create volume in your hair, you will not create volume. It's really honestly as simple as that. The fact is that your hair texture needs something to create that foundation. Now, what we want to do is make sure that what we're using isn't going to weigh your hair down or lay it flat, because some can and some will. So there are kind of three, I would call them kind of sections within this. There's maybe the person that doesn't want to feel like there's a ton of stuff in their hair. They want it a very light amount of texture, as soft as possible, but they want something. They want to give their hair a little bit of volume. I like the Color Wow Extra Large. This actually gives your hair a good amount of fluff, but still feels very light and fluffy in the hair. Keep in mind that if you want a lot of volume, this is probably gonna be a little bit too light for you. But if your hair just needs a little something extra and you're not trying to get a lot of control and you're more concerned with less texture in your hair and less concerned with the volume amount, then Color Wow Extra Large is gonna be a really good place to start. But if you're wanting something where you create a little bit more volume, maybe you're not as concerned with the feeling, you still don't want it to feel too aggressive, but you want a little bit more oomph than the Color Wow. In that case, I've been using the Caviar. Okay, this is from Alterna, and it is a mousse. You use a little bit less of this than you would with the Color Wow, but it's gonna give you a little bit more volume. You're gonna feel a little bit more texture in your hair, and in just a second, I'm gonna tell you a little trick on how you can kind of work some of that texture out so you get some volume, but you feel like there's a little bit less product in your hair. But this is gonna give you a little less than the Color Wow, but it's still not gonna give you a ton of control. It's just gonna give you more control. Now, if you really are not that concerned with the amount of texture in your hair, right? You're ready to feel like it's a little bit on the dirty side, and you still want some movement in your hair, some like playability, right? So it isn't too stiff, but you really want some control and some volume out of it, then for you, I actually just found and have been using this Stay High Mousse from Redmond. Now, I'll tell you, I typically say use more product than less, right? More often than not, people use too little of the volumizing products, and it ends up actually laying your hair a little bit too flat because you're not really getting the benefit of the volumizer, but you still get some of the texture, the feeling in your hair. So the concern is, well, if I use more, I'm gonna get more of that texture and less volume, it's just gonna get heavy. When in reality, it's that people don't use enough of the product to get the actual results, the volume from it, and all they're getting is a little bit of the texture. And if you'd actually use a little bit more, you would find that you get more volume out of it with close to the same amount of texture in your hair. This, maybe I a little bit eat my words on that. This is pretty aggressive. So you would wanna start with a little bit on the left side and kind of work in more and more and more until you kind of reach your limit on how much you can use. But I'll tell you that this gives a great amount of volume. You will absolutely feel this in your hair. You will absolutely get volume and control that lasts much longer than the Caviar or the Color Wow. So keep that in mind, but if you do want something a little bit more aggressive and you want to make sure you get some volume, this has actually been a really strong product that we just recently started using, and I've been a big fan of it. Okay, I said I was gonna share a tip to kind of take some of that texture out of your hair while still leaving some of the volume, so it feels a little bit softer, but you still get some results. And that is actually using a hair oil. Now, there's a pro and a con to it. The pro is that hair oil will break down some of that product, make it feel a little bit softer, and then sometimes give it even a little bit of shine. The con is that if you use the wrong one, you will potentially get your hair actually quite greasy. It can lay your hair down, or it could remove too much of the product feel or texture, make it too soft, and actually work against that volumizer and end up making your hair feel and look even flatter. So one I've been using that I actually really like is the Whey oil. The Whey hair oil is very light in texture, so I don't feel a lot of it in the hair. It gives a little bit of shine, but it doesn't end up seeming to weigh hair down, but it will help to kind of break down that product. So you would use your volumizing product, work that through your hair where it needs to be to create the shape that you're looking for, and then you would use 1, maybe 2 pumps of this oil, just a little bit, work that through your hands, and then work that through your hair as well, mainly mid-shaft to ends, to kind of break up some of that feel and make your hair feel a little bit softer. But it's done really well for not weighing hair down, still feeling light and airy, but doing a good job of just cutting the edge off of that texture in the hair. Okay, now we're gonna blow dry your hair, and what blow dryer you use is super important. Again, we have to make sure that every step you take is minimizing the damage on your hair, and 2 ways that we do that is 1, we control the amount of heat that you're using, and we control the efficiency of the dryer. So if you spent any time around my channel, you know that I've been talking about the Life in Swift forever. I'm a big fan. And here's the reason that I'm a fan of this. 1, it dries hair very quickly. Okay, when I tested this actually against a Dyson blow dryer, which I'm still a big fan of Dyson, don't get me wrong, they're fantastic dryers, but it actually got hair dry quicker with less heat. So this on its hottest setting still doesn't get as hot as a lot of other blow dryers, but the amount of air pressure coming out of this really does an incredible job at getting hair dry very efficiently. So it's drying your hair quicker with less heat, so there's less damage. And to me, that isn't something that a choice that we get to make with thin, fine hair. That's a necessity. There's medium, as well as hot temperatures, as well as a cool temperature, and even a setting that kind of cycles through all of those while you're drying your hair if you want to kind of really minimize that damage. But it's been a great little workhorse for us. So I've been using it for probably 4 years or so, and everybody that I have recommended it to, both subscribers on this channel as well as friends and clients, have really enjoyed it. Now, while you're drying your hair with your blow dryer, you're getting some of that moisture out. One of my favorite things to use, a favorite tool, and I've talked about this before, this is kind of a game changer for creating volume, especially in thin, fine hair, is the Volumizer brush. I have been using this for the entirety of my 30-year career as a professional stylist, and I absolutely love it. These little vents allow air to get through, so it actually still dries hair very quickly. It's very easy to use because it's small, it's light, it's quick to go through hair with. These little bitty little nubs can actually catch hair and rip hair out, but I haven't noticed that being an issue on these, and I've used the same one in the salon for multiple years with no problem. And ultimately, they're really good at just getting those roots up off the scalp while you're getting that moisture out with the blow dryer and helping encourage a little bit more of that volume. Okay, after you get your hair mostly dry, roughly 80% dry or so, you're gonna wanna add some bend to it because bend is really where volume comes from. So what you've done up to this point is you've used products that help you create a foundation, but now you need to utilize that foundation and create the shape. The way we do that is through either hot air round brushes. I like those, but if I'm completely honest, I don't like them as much because the ones that we've used that really work get quite hot, and they can actually be even more damaging to your hair, and you can't control where the air is coming from since it's all coming from inside of the brush. So you don't really have control over how you're distributing that hot air and that heat. So to me, I prefer, if possible, to use an actual round brush and blow dryer at once. Now, the round brush that you use is super important. I like to use the Olivia Garden. I've been using in the salon again for about 30 years, and it's my favorite. The reason it's so important which round brush you use is because you want to have the right amount of tension. See, if these bristles are too far apart or too close together, it can create a different amount of tension in your hair. And that means that it can be pulling your hair too much or just sliding through your hair and not getting enough to actually smooth your hair out. So the amount of tension you get is really important. The coating on these being ceramic is going to help conduct heat more efficiently and more evenly around it and be a little bit less damaging. And then the perforations, these holes through here, are gonna help the air to travel through, so it also is a little bit more efficient in its drying process. That again means less time on your hair and therefore less potential heat damage. Side note, I may or may not be creating something for you. Might be a brush. Question for you then. Comment below and tell me, if you could have your perfect brush, like it met everything, did everything that you wanted it to do, what would that be? What kind of brush would that be? What would it do that other brushes don't do? I would love to know that. And if you want to keep up to date on this process, there's a link in the description where you can get signed up so that you can stay in the loop on that. But using the right brush is just as important as using a round brush. So use the right one. Olivia Garden, it's linked in the description, you're gonna love it. Okay, now in many cases, people move from that into a hot iron, some sort of hot tool. Or maybe you skip the round brush altogether and you just go straight to a hot tool. Either way, the type of tool you use is super important. Now, if you're using a flat iron, you wanna find a flat iron that is not ceramic coated plates, fully ceramic plates. And the reason I say ceramic and not all of these other titanium, stuff like that, plates out there, is because ceramic heats very evenly across the plates, which means that it's gonna be more efficient. And it's just less damaging. See, titanium does a great job of heating efficiently because it gets hot very quickly, but it actually can be a little bit damaging on thin, fine hair. So we wanna stick to ceramic. Now, for me, I've got an iron that I've been using probably for 20 years that I absolutely love. It's Infrashine ceramic 1-inch iron. I used that flat iron for easily 20 years. The same iron, literally the same unit. It didn't break, and I used it day in, day out on almost all of my clients. And it's a great iron. So I will link that in the description as well. If you're wanting a flat iron / curling iron, you're trying to get wave, I found really good results with this right here. This is the Tymo Airflow. Now, I like this because, again, ceramic plates, but also because it's round like this. If you're a person that struggles with trying to get wave in your hair with the flat iron, and you want something that looks a little bit more natural or a little bit more control over how much wave you get, these are a game changer. Now, they have a lot of different modes and functions, right? Like they actually have a fan here that cools the outside down that helps to kind of lock it in. I've actually never even used that mode on this. We just turn it on, turn it to about the medium heat, and I use it like a flat iron or I use it to curl. But the fact that this is rounded makes it a lot easier to get that wave. If you struggle and you want a flat iron / kind of curling iron mixed into one, these things are awesome. Okay, now you've styled your hair, we need to move into finishing sprays. You wanna lock this style in place that you finally got. What are we gonna use? One of my favorite finishing sprays is actually like the Kenner Art Formation spray, the 18. This is a great spray. It gives a good amount of hold without being too sticky. My only gripe about this, Kenner, if you're listening, let's fix this. This nozzle gets clogged all the time. Now, all you have to do is run it under some hot water, wipe it off with a little towel, and it unclogs. But come on, I feel like we could do better than that. We've also got the brushable hairspray from Redmond. This is definitely a lighter hairspray, so you're not gonna get as much control, but if you still want a lot of movable texture in your hair, you wanna give it a little bit of hold, but not too much, it just needs a little something. This is where you're gonna live, and it's gonna work great for you. If you want more stronger hold, you wanna make sure that it stays in place a little bit better, then the control hairspray from Redmond is gonna be more of where you should live. This is gonna definitely give you more control. It's still not gonna feel horribly stiff, but you're definitely gonna feel it in your hair. So just pay attention that this may or may not be more than you need, but likely if you want more control, this is gonna be where you want it. Okay, now one other thing that I've talked about a lot of times is sometimes you might not wanna use hairspray. Now I've mentioned before that actually clay or wax can function as a hairspray and leave your hair actually more manipulatable. That is definitely, that can't be a word. Is that a word? That can't be a word. Wax as a kind of liquid or cream hairspray has been a go-to trick for me for decades. Now, the one that you use is super specific because if you use the wrong one, they're a nightmare. So what you're looking for is a wax that says something like matte finish, okay? Not shine, not high shine, not glossy. You want matte finish. You're looking for a matte finish, high control. The one that I've been using lately is the Sumo Clay from Bumble and Bumble. I like it. I've actually got it in my hair. I've got a lot of it in my hair. And then I actually layered on top of this in my hair a wax that actually makes it greasy and shiny. We'll talk about that in a second. Very specific reason that I did that for this video. But this I've been using my hair on a day-to-day basis. It gives it a lot of control, a lot of texture. I can basically do whatever I want with it, but doesn't really weigh my hair down or feel like it starts to get greasy and flat. So waxes are amazing on thin fine hair, as long as it's the right one. What if you want to add a little bit of shine to your hair after it's all said and done? Maybe you're feeling like it just looks a little bit too dry after all of this. You want to add a little bit of that shine back, but you don't want greasy oil. Well, then you are gonna wanna use something called a spray shine. Now, one that I like is also from Redmond. It's called Shine Flash. And I like it because it's not super heavy. So you're gonna wanna hold this back from your hair a little ways. Okay, don't put it like right here. Okay, you're gonna wanna hold this back and you're gonna spray it on kind of like you would a hairspray. And basically all it's gonna do is give your hair a little bit of shine. It doesn't give your hair any control or hold or anything like that. So do not use this in place of a hairspray and expect it to give it any sort of hold. All that's gonna do is give your hair kind of a glossy over shine just on the kind of outside of your hair. And the other big thing you wanna be aware of is do not spray this near wood floors or tile floors because the overspray can get very slick and you will find yourself ice skating all over your house where you didn't even want to. Unless it's like in the holidays and you've got some skates and you decide you wanted to skate, hose this all over. Okay, now let's talk about next day hair. You wake up in the morning, you don't want to re-shampoo your hair and restyle it, but you want a little something. Maybe you just want to round brush it a little bit or take a flat iron to it, kind of polish it off, and then give it a little bit of grit. You could use something like a texture spray, but this is also, again, a place where you want to make sure you're using the right one. Now, some dry shampoos can offer a little bit of texture and volume to your hair, and they're not always a bad idea, especially if your hair gets oily or greasy or your scalp gets oily or greasy quickly. Hair Story actually makes one called Powder that I really like because it does give your hair a very dry texture. It doesn't feel like there's any grease in it anymore, and it actually can give your hair a little bit of lift. But that gives your hair lift, not as much in the form of texture or movement. So if you want texture or movement, then you're gonna want something like a touchable texture spray in general. This one just happens to say touchable. It's the IGK Beach Club. And Deanna's been using this for a long time now, and it's great. You spray it in, you scrunch it into your hair, it gives your hair this kind of voluminous look, a lot of texture, a lot of movement, takes out some of the grease. It doesn't feel oily or anything like that. So it's not gonna like super weigh your hair down the minute you spray it. But it's kind of like sea salt spray. If you've ever used something like that, it's a bit like that. Okay. I told you there's a game changer trick. Now, there's a very specific reason that I used wax that makes my hair shiny before this particular video. Because what you didn't notice is this entire video, I have had my favorite thin fine hair product in my hair. And the fact that you didn't notice that I had that is a testament to how good it works. See, this is my hair before I used this product. And this is my hair now. That is because of this. Topics. These are hair fibers, and basically what they do is they actually make your scalp hide. They make your hair look denser at the roots. See, all of the other products that we talked about here manage the damage, control the amount of damage you add to your hair, and the amount of volume you're getting. So they help to make your hair look and appear more thicker, while also helping to minimize the amount of thinness you get from hair breakage, that kind of thing. But there's nothing out there that I've seen other than these that will help manage the see your scalp through your roots scenario that many of us struggle with. That's where these come in. So all you do is you just put your hand up and you spray these in like this, and they make your hair look denser to the scalp. Now, these come in all different colors, okay? I actually take a black and a white a lot of times and I mix them together in another little container to create my own specific formula of gray. Or I'll just use the gray. This is the actual silver gray color. The one thing that I would say that you absolutely want to do is if you get these, they come with the top like this. And this top is like a salt and pepper shaker kind of style. I hate that thing. It's so hard to use in your hair. So for me, I've always bought one of these little applicators, and I take the little top off and then I put this on instead. And that helps it pump. That makes it so much easier to apply these. No, these are not gonna drip down your forehead during the day. They're not gonna come off on your hands every time you touch your hair. They're not gonna work themselves out, and they're not gonna build up. They're gonna rinse out the next day you shampoo your hair. They're gonna make it look thick and dense while they're in your hair. And they've been amazing. Like, they have been my go-to for taking thin, fine hair and making it look far denser. These are the secret that no one is gonna know it about. And I actually used a stupid amount of them today, like a lot, just to kind of overdo it, because it's like, if you're gonna notice them, you're gonna notice them when I've got this much of this stuff in my hair right now. You didn't notice until I pointed it out, did ya? Did ya? You didn't, did ya? That's how good they are. Okay, so those are my favorite products right now for thin, fine hair. If you have any other products that you've been working with that you absolutely love, do us a favor, man. Join the community and throw them in the comments below, because we all can benefit from what you know, because I don't know all products. I know what I'm using, and I know what I like, and I know why I like it. If you want to see more about thin, fine hair, then you're going to love this video right up here. So why don't you go over there, and I'll meet you over there. Take care now. We'll see you later. I'm sitting on a pillow. I don't know why I told you that, but I am. See?